My name is Ase Daniels, your host, and we are a community of like minded people who are powered by our no in order to make room for our bigger yes. We are recharged with kindness, not being nice. There's a difference. And we are renewed with bounce back resilience through burnout, from burnout. I should change that right now. And we are propelled by our life's magnet, which is our spiritual gift. This is who we are. We are the intro powered tribe. And I wanted to welcome you all to our podcast tonight. The topic: how to effectively process our burnout in order to never experience it again. I'm telling you all, there is a possibility if we effectively process our burnout that we can avoid it in the future. Burnout is real. It is literally taking people out. This stress, this unmanaged stress, chronic stress that goes unmanaged, that's what burnout is defined as. It's taking people out. It's taking a lot of us out. And we need to properly process it. Okay, we're gonna dive deep into this. I'm putting on my counselor hat. Okay, some of y'all know I'm doing my pastoral counseling masters. I got one more class in the internship in the spring, so I'm excited to be finished, almost finished with that. But I need us to understand something. I believe everybody goes through seasons of burnout occasionally, but my goal is to help us go through fewer seasons of burnout, and the impact in the time frame in that burnout season will become shorter and shorter and eventually be gone. This is the goal. If we know, how to effectively process our burnout. And I think a lot of us don't know how to process. And I think a lot of us, especially men, we put our head down and we grind. This whole grind culture, this whole broken false paradigm. And I think the pandemic exposed how it is a false paradigm. It's not real. It is not sustainable, and it is very damaging and unhealthy to our lives, to our personhood. Again, sometimes see, and then when we attach our identity to our work, then we get confused on, if we stop working and we stop grinding, then we lose part of who we are. That is why I'm so big on spiritual gifts, because our gifts is to who we are, regardless of our current position and our current where we earn money and earn salary is not directly contingent on our identity, because we can lose our job but never lose our identity. That is where we need to identify, not our man. I'm telling y'all, our life magnet. If we don't know what our life magnet is, we are struggling, we are confused, and we put too much pressure on ourselves to work and to show everyone how good we are at our jobs, because we've attached our identity to it. And eventually we will get to a burnout space. And when we're burnt out, let me tell y'all something. Burnout is real, and if we don't address it properly, just okay. We know the definition: burnout, decreased job performance, depersonalization. You separate yourself because you're so stressed out and you left it unmanaged. You're so stressed out, you depersonalize, you begin to disconnect, you begin to distance yourself from other people, because you literally don't have the emotional and mental and physical bandwidth in order to continue moving forward. So you depersonalize and you become a shell of yourself. You're no longer who you are. You become almost an automaton, a robot at work, where you're just going to check the box and kind of show up and to just be, right? Instead of being excited about work, instead of being excited about what you're doing, we're in a burned down space. But if we learn how to process, and then we're going to dive deeper. We're going to dive into this. What does it mean to process? Because y'all know I'm big on definition. If we don't define something, then we'll lose the importance of it, and we won't give it the credibility that it needs in our lives. So this is just put You're sitting in the seat. We're sitting in the seat together. We're learning together. And I think a lot of people, because a lot of us, especially from my community, especially from my faith background, we have dismissed and pushed to the side counseling and therapy, so we don't understand what it looks like to effectively process our emotions, our feelings, current situations, bad news, disappointment, grief, anger. If we don't know how to effectively process life and life events, especially the negative ones, I believe we are bound to repeat them. That's one of the things. And I'm gonna get to, let me talk about what processing is. Then we're gonna talk to what happens when we don't process, and then we got some questions. And I'm learning there's a book called Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. And I'm gonna get the name, I'm gonna post it. But this sister wrote a book that transformed my idea of how powerful questions are. And if we could ask the right question, there's no, we grew up in school hearing there's no such thing as a bad question. But I believe I agree with that, but two things can be true. But if we ask the right question, doors open and a breakthrough is on the other side of it. If we know how to effectively process and ask ourselves the right question, we're gonna get to that. Okay, so process. Number one, it is okay, let me go in this order. Here we go. It's updating. Listen to this, y'all. Some of us need to do this. This is our introspective work that each and every person who hears this podcast needs to go through. We need to process life, especially now. It's just like the analogy of driving a car. We need with the mirrors. We have a rear view mirror at the two sides and one at the head there, and you look and you see who's behind you to the left or the right. I believe that is the percentage of it. Just like how many we have a front window, where we look out and see forward, but then we have small mirrors. There's three of them typically, where we can look back and look to the sides in our lives. So we don't have to spend our whole life, but I believe there's a season of life. And some of us need 3 to 6 months because we've never done it. Some of us are 20, 40, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old and have never effectively processed what happened to them in the past, what's going on right now, and what we want for the future. We haven't processed it. Okay, definition. There's a couple parts to this. Real simple. Part number one of this process definition in the counseling therapy space. Okay, so the first one is updating and re-examining the meaning of old memories and emotions, but also developing new language with which to describe, experience, and understand the past or present. Okay, let me unpack that. It's really heavy. We're getting really heavy tonight, but I need us to understand, if we don't know how to process, I believe the past, just like how they say in history, if we don't learn from the past, we're bound to repeat it. This is a deep, I believe it's a spiritual principle that we must effectively process what's happened and then re-examine it and develop new language in which to describe, experience, and understand the past and present. What happens because we're using the past? And see, this is what we need to understand about our brains. Our brains doesn't have a calendar. Okay, there's no time, there's no clock in our brain. So what happens? So we're on the emotional side. When things happen to us in the past, it might be last week, 2 weeks, 5 weeks, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 25, 30. If we don't effectively process those emotions, what happens is the brain, and something similar happens now. What the brain does is that these synapses connect the emotions to the memories. So what happens is when you experience something now that's similar to what happened in the past, the brain brings all those same emotions and those memories to compound what's going on right now today or what you've experienced recently. Because we're still using the same language, we have unprocessed those emotions. I believe that the brain is too powerful to forget. But what we need to do, and this is some deep spirit work in the spirit that we need to get to. This is what I believe is part of some my faith background. Understand that this is part of discipleship, where we don't understand how the brain and the heart work. But what I'm telling you all tonight is that the brain is extremely powerful, and what it does, looks to lump memories and emotions together and looking for patterns. It's constantly with this high powered uh, electrical, mechanical. I'm saying it, but it's a highly powerful bioelectrical unit in within our skull that is constantly looking for patterns in which to make things more efficiently, and how we are to process and think things through. Right? Listen. So something bad happened. Like, I remember, I'll give you an example. I was terrified of dogs growing up. I had my cousin had a dog, and I remember the dog bit me on my behind. I'll never forget. I was running away and it bit me. Bow, boom, and I was like, I don't know, 8 years old. And ever since then, any future dog I see, I was always terrified, and I would run, and I just didn't want to deal with them. Now we have a dog. Now I'm not scared of dogs at all. Again, because I properly took time to process that pain. It was painful, but it's funny because it wasn't as much painful as it was emotionally jarring for me, right? Not physically painful, but emotionally. And so what I did, I had to go back and re-examine and give that experience new language, and ultimately separate those painful emotions and that startling feeling, separate those emotions from the actual memory. So now when I think about it, those feelings don't rise up. This is the processing I'm talking about, where we can disconnect the feelings, and some of us have painful emotions, and I believe they become poisonous to us on the inside of our subconscious. That every time we think about anything similar, think about any kind of dog running, I would think that this dog is going to do the same thing to me that my cousin's dog did when I was 8 years old. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. We have to re-examine and update the meaning of these old memories so we can disconnect the painful emotions from the event. I'm telling you, this is breakthrough stuff, y'all. I'm telling y'all what I know. And if we don't effectively do this, especially in the space of burnout, it's going to happen again. And let me just jump to what there's other parts to it. And as far as processing, and I'm not even gonna go there because I'm gonna keep it short tonight, because we're gonna have a whole workshop breaking this down and how to effectively not only process effectively our burnout, but how to go, how to bounce instead of splat. Oh man, I can't wait to share this with y'all. Coming up next week, we have a workshop, interactive, engaging, fun yet practical and meaningful way in light of in the burnout space, how we can actually bounce instead of splat. We're going to break that down next week Wednesday. So okay, somebody just called. Okay, let me get back to going. There we go. All right, so when we don't process our burnout, hang on guys. Okay. I messed up. Oh, okay, here we go. All right. Problems when we don't effectively process our burnout. Number one is that it gets worse. Okay. Burnout is real, stress is real, unmanaged stress, chronic stress that's perpetually going on. See, the body is used to handling spikes of stress, and the body releases cortisol, and the brain's limbic system, that's where the house of the emotions, and the amygdala is really the fear mechanism, the amygdala in the middle of the brain. That is what is triggered, and we go into uh, flight or fright mode, right? It's when there's something, an emergency, something that we need to escape from, something that we need to get away from to get to safety, so we will be physically safe, right? And no harm will come to us. We go into fight or flight mode, fight or flight. What did I say? Either way. So the amygdala goes into action and the body releases cortisol to help us respond quicker, be mentally sharper, right? So usually when the stressful situation or event or problem or thing that might cause you harm or person or place or thing or whatever, that issue is resolved and there's no more potential of us getting harmed or hurt or injured in any way, then the cortisol levels come down and then the body goes back to normal. But what happens with chronic stress is that the body continues to release this powerful neurochemical cortisol into the bloodstream. And so it's chronic so that the spike happens and that stress level and the cortisol levels in our blood, in our brain, continues to stay at a heightened level. And what it does is it heightens, it inflames the limbic system, the feelings and emotions, but then it shuts down the prefrontal cortex, the thinking and processing part of our brain. This is we have to understand what happens when we allow stress to linger and to become chronic. When we don't manage our stress properly, we get into a burnout space. And then we go into depersonalization, depleted motivation, negative attitude towards others. But also, when we don't process effectively, not only does it get worse, number one, but number two, it becomes habitual. So that now, this is what happens. And I need to make a diagram breaking this down because we go from burnout. Sorry, let me see. My mic is in the way. So we go from burnout to, how do I say? We go from burnout and then we go to, we go to we pause. Okay. So what happens is we pause, we're burnout, we pause, and then the burnout comes back. So we plateau, then the burnout comes back, then we plateau again, and the burnout comes back. So the burnout is going down, the plateau is here. So every time we become habitual in our burnout because we left our chronic stress unmanaged and unaddressed, it continually gets worse. The burnout space, it's sustained longer, and it becomes more harmful and negative to us and detrimental to our mental, emotional, and physical health every time we leave that previous season of burnout unmanaged and unprocessed. Okay. Then the last, we yeah. Oh, so number one, it gets worse. Number two, it becomes habitual. So every time we're just going from burnout to burnout to burnout, it becomes habitual. Our brains get used to going from these. So we go from burnout to plateau, from burnout to plateau, from burnout to plateau, and our energy level and our energy tank shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. That's why people snap. That's why people go off. That's why their attitude is foul. That's why everything that happens on the road, on the way to work, they're fussing and cussing. They come into work, fussing and cussing. They go home to their spouse or their kids or whoever, fussing and cussing. Family members, friends. It doesn't matter because they've lived in such a space for so long, a burnout space, that they have left unmanaged and unprocessed. And so it's literally depleting our energy level and shrinking the tank of our energy level. So even when we recover from burnout or we take a pause because we haven't addressed the real issue, we said, oh, I'm going to take a vacation. I'm going to take a extended weekend. Whatever those things is, vacations don't necessarily address burnout. We're going to talk about that next week. We have to bounce. There's a way to bounce back even stronger after burnout than before. There's a way. We're going to talk about that next week. Okay. Okay. And let me get deep real quick. Psychology Today. Awesome article. You sign up for the newsletter. They have really intriguing articles, especially about burnout and our mental and physical, mental and emotional health. So we got to educate ourselves on this, y'all, especially in regards to burnout. It says places, emotions, and memories associated with the traumatic event are avoided. Again, see, now we're talking about trauma here, but that could go for anything. It could go from trauma, disappointment, grief, anger, fear, anything unprocessed. When those things are avoided, and thus they fail to undergo the constant reevaluation and examination that would have updated their meaning in the light of new knowledge and experience. See, when we don't process our emotions or things that have gone bad in our lives, we get emotionally and mentally stuck, and we don't grow and mature, so that the next time something similar happens, we look at it from new eyes, and we look at it with new perspective, and we look at it with more fortitude and confidence that we can address this properly. But if we don't, we see that same thing, and again, the brain lumps those painful emotions to the past memories. So it's like we're experiencing that situation along with all the other situations again. So it gets that much worse, and the weight of the world, it feels like the weight of the world is on us because we've left the previous situation or situations, plural, unprocessed. Thus, the meaning of these difficult events remain frozen in a past perspective. I know, man. Let me tell y'all something. You ever, just like going, it's like going back to the high school reunion, and you meet somebody 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and they're still talking about the same things they did those 20 years ago because they're frozen. And I'm not making accusations, but I'm telling us what we need to do. We cannot leave these things from the past frozen in our spirit, frozen in our subconscious, and think we're going to be okay. Because when we come into another season of burnout, it's going to be that season of burnout, plus all the other ones that have gone unprocessed and unmanaged and undealt with on top of this one. That's why the energy level is depleted. Every time we go through a burnout space, we come back worse and we have less energy moving forward. Then it goes into real psychological terms, and then we start getting neurotic, and you know, and then people say I'm fine, but really now this gets deep. This talk part a whole new meaning. I used to laugh at it, but this is serious business. When people start saying I'm fine, really they're fearful, insecure, neurotic, and emotional, because they're usually, when people say I'm fine, they're leaving things out that they don't really want to address. I'm going deep tonight, y'all. Let me talk about this thing real quick, because we're gonna get into this moving forward. And I'm telling y'all on my podcast community, I need y'all to understand something. We need community in order to do this effectively. We need a team. We need a life team, like I heard Henry Cloud, Dr. Townsend, forgive me. Henry Cloud and Dr. Townsend wrote the book, but Dr. Townsend wrote the book Boundaries, and he broke down who's on your life team. When I say life team, we should have a therapist, a coach, a spiritual advisor, a financial guru, a financial coach, a fitness coach. These are the people that we need in all the most successful people all have coaches in the areas they need the most help in. They don't try to do it by themselves. And I'm challenging us to identify, especially the weakest areas that we're dealing with right now, get a coach. Then we need to find a community of like-minded people that are striving to do well, to do better, and to improve, and to grow, and to mature, so that past seasons of burnout, past trauma, past negativity, past disappointment, past grief, past heartache no longer binds them and drags them down and holds them in a frozen, stuck position. So, real quick, okay, let me finish here. How to effectively process our burnout. We ask questions. There's 3 questions, then there's practical stuff. But we're going to talk about this. We're going to continue to talk about this, because we as intro power, what we think we're doing is that we think we are being humble by saying we're fine, but we're really hiding. Shout out to Cheryl Riley, who broke that down. You're not humble, you're hiding. A lot of us not only hiding from success and hiding from leading in the lane in which we are to lead. We are to lead in a lane that that we are birthed to lead in. That we are operating in our gift, and we have our character that sustains us. That's why we have to be kind and not nice. It's character that will sustain us. Once we get to the top, it's character that keeps us there. So we have to have character, but we have to be motivated and propelled and inspired to step into that lane which we lead, so we can be a solution to a problem in today's world. People are waiting on us to step into the solution space that we are here and built for. Oh man, I'm telling y'all, we need to get here. We need to get here. Okay. Number one, how to effectively process our burnout experience. Like we're burnt out. We have chronic stress that has been gone unmanaged, right? And we're fussing and cussing. We're irritable. Our job performance has gone in the toilet, down the drain. No good. No joy, no energy, no excitement, right? No joy, no. We just going through the motions. Depersonalization. We disconnect. We go into this autopilot mode, and life becomes dreary and drab, and without feeling or heart or excitement. There's nothing. It's empty. We're empty because we've left our burnout unaddressed, and we try to grind our way through it. I'll just wait till the holiday. I'll just wait till the new year. I'll just wait till the summer. I'll just wait till my vacation. But that's not processing it. That's just pausing it. But because you come back and it's the same drama in your head, unresolved issues and emotions, and the same situations and issues at work that you pushed to the side and told everybody you're fine. I don't need help. I don't need support. I'm good. Lying. See, God's people, those who are follow my faith perspective, we think that we're being helpful, but we're really being dishonest. And God does not, we can't be kingdom citizens and be dishonest. We call ourselves children of God. We cannot be dishonest, and it starts with us individually, how we speak and say over ourselves. Number one, we have to admit that we have these feelings. I am burnt out. Verbalize it. Say it with your words. I am burnt out. Admit to how you are feeling. That's number one. Number two, this talks about values. This talks of, oh my goodness. Again, some of us are not humble, we're hiding because we haven't verbalized to ourselves and created an environment in which our values and goals and dreams and desires are aligned with the decisions that we're making. And a lot of us have never asked ourselves the question. Here's question number two: what did we allow and what did we limit? See, these are two questions because a lot of times with burnout, we've allowed too much and we've limited the things that we should have allowed. We flipped it. We've limited our self-care and we've allowed other people to put their responsibilities on our plate. Yeah, we flipped it. So we have to have some real uncomfortable, courageous conversations with ourselves. What did I allow and what did I limit that really I needed? Now I'm not saying time off is completely negative. Sometimes we need to, and we're going to talk about that. But we need time off, but we need to make that time off effectively. Use it effectively, not just binge watch whatever show. Now there may be a season. I'm not mad at that, but we have to come out the other end of that time off, and even the night when we leave work. There's a system that we need to implement. We're going to talk about that next week. Bounce or splat. These are systems that we must put in place. We must make part of our daily morning and evening rituals so that not only can we recalibrate at the end of the day, we can recalibrate at the end of the week, we can recalibrate at the end of the month, or whatever, a space in each one of these spaces during the day, during the weekend, one time a month, maybe a few times a quarter, halfway through the year. We need to be systematic and deliberate about how we address our burnout. And let me end here. So question number three: what values did we not guard and protect? We're dealing with burnout and we're processing it. We need to grab a journal. We need to grab a note page on your phone or your tablet. Sit down and start asking ourselves these introspective questions. And if you need to lock it so that nobody else can follow it, you just feel uncomfortable. There's certain spaces that nobody else needs to have access to except for you and God. In your journal, nobody else needs to read that. That's for you. There's things that you can only that are only for you. That's allowed. The intro power to listen to my words. We need to, again, see, the problem is with burnout is because there's values we did not guard: our time, our emotional and mental energy, our resources, you know, our roles and responsibilities at work. We didn't guard those. We didn't protect those well enough. And we got to be honest with ourselves. That's why I'm frustrated right now. That's why I'm burnt out right now, because there's values that I appreciate and want to live by that I didn't uphold. We got to be honest. Now let me just put a commercial before we end. All of these questions that we ask ourselves must be done from a learner space as opposed to a judger space. Again, from that book, Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. We need to begin asking ourselves these questions in a space of 100% judgment, in a 100% judgment-free zone. We are to learn when we ask these questions, not to condemn and not to blame. That is unhelpful. It's unhealthy. And there's only one person, the enemy of our soul, if you believe in that, is that will benefits from us condemning and blaming and shaming and putting ourselves down. We're learning. We're being honest because we want to be proactive and we want to address the issue. Again, if we don't, we leave these things unaddressed and unprocessed, they're bound to repeat themselves. They're bound to get worse. And also, they're bound to spill over into other important areas of our lives. So work issues get left unprocessed. Guess where those painful emotions and burnout and stress and anxiety, guess where those spill over into? Our home life, our relationship, our marriage, with our kids, our relationship with God. It spills over because we left it unprocessed. This is what I'm talking about. So as we close here, we need to, these are just practical, and we're going to touch on this next week. Uh, Bounce or splat. We have a workshop that I'm going to invite everybody to because we need to have practical things we do so that the next burnout season you're in, some of us may be in it now. We're in October now of 2022. Some of us are burnt out and we don't know how to get out of it. I'm challenging us, and I believe that if we could do this together, not only will we get out of our burnout space and season, but we'll come out way better and way stronger and more deliberate and more practical and more mature, so that the next season will be shorter and shorter and eventually be null and void. Last one is that we need to reset, restart, readjust to our fitness, nutrition, and rest. We got to take better care of ourselves. We know it. It's, it's so easy to live in this burnt out space. And when to give you a little, when we splat is when we find ourselves in addictive patterns, negative health patterns, and life patterns, addictive ones. We spending too much money online. We're shopping all day. Uh, you know, we're online gambling, and we can't turn off the fantasy football. We're all of a sudden we're losing all our money. We have arguments about money, eating the wrong things, watching the wrong things online, following the wrong people online. These are negative patterns that we find ourselves in a burnt out space because we have splatted. We've chosen to splat. We're going to talk about that. And then we need to plan and prepare with recalibrated values, allowances, and limits, or boundaries. I call them allowances and limits because a lot of times with boundaries, people tend to focus on what you're limiting. But I believe we need to include what we are allowing. And that's being around like minded people. We are allowing space for our self care. We are allowing ourselves to be honest and to not condemn ourselves, but to sit in a seat of a learner. Let me learn from this past burnout season. We have to, again, there's nobody that wins. Only one person, and he hates us, that benefits from us condemning, blaming, looking for blame, who's at fault. None of that ever helps. Burnout is real, y'all. And and see, life is not about what happens to us, but how we choose to respond. It's not going to get any easier. We've got to get stronger. We've got to get more mature. We've got to get wiser, and we've got to be more emotionally intelligent on how we process life events. Life has hit us and it put us flat on our back. A lot of us have experienced some really damaging, hurtful, traumatic, painful things in our lives. We can't allow what happened to us to define not only who we are, but how we move forward. So we have to effectively process it. We're going to talk more about this, and I'm going to be inviting everybody to our next workshop, how to bounce and not splat in your next burnout season. I don't know what I'm going to call it, but something to that. You all have a great night, and remember, nice people do finish last, but kind ones rise to the top and are sustained there. God bless you. Have a good night. Let's go.